think, yep, and we are live.
Oh, does that mean people are watching us right now?
No,
Oh,
just means we're rolling.
oh. Like,
But-
do I need a more dynamic voice? Like, do I need to go more up and down so it's not so monotone
Nope,
to create interest?
no.
Huh.
People just tune in and listen to the conversation.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll introduce you.
Okay.
Will,
Yes.
we met at story time.
We did.
And
That sounds like we. Okay, go on.
yeah, no. So it was after story time. You just walked up to me out of nowhere.
For our children. It was, it was story time for our children.
Yeah, we should clarify. It was not. We were. I don't think they do an adult story time, but that would actually be pretty interesting.
That would be. I'm not sure if I would trust the people who go to it.
It'd be like Bible study.
Yeah.
Isn't that like adult story time?
Well, we should just call it Bible study then, rather than adult story time.
Yes. You were saying you got an espresso machine?
Yes. I knew you had an espresso machine, and Megan loved it so much that we decided to buy our own. Because in the mornings, Megs is my wife. Around 6 a.m., she just turns over and hands me the baby. And then I grab the baby and I'm like, oh. So then I would go and like manually make, like Chemex, where you actually have to like fold a piece of paper and like.
Oh, and then pour over?
And then pour it over.
Yeah.
It was getting real frustrating. So then we decided for the espresso machine. And this morning was the first time I made the espresso, and I tamped it, but apparently not strongly enough. So then when I clicked start on the double, it didn't reach espresso range, but it still made coffee.
Right.
So I was kind of irritated that I didn't make an espresso. So I re-poured some beans and made another 2 shots.
Did you drink the first one?
Oh, I drank both of them. And I got to work and my heart was pounding and I was shaking. And I said, I had 4 shots this morning. They're like, They're like, why don't you go eat something? I was like, I'm intermittent fasting right now. So.
Yeah. Did you use a tamper that came with it?
Yeah.
You'll buy a new one.
You think so?
I want 100%.
Huh.
It's like an addiction, man. So I bought that espresso machine and I used the original tamper for a while, and I was like,
what kind of is it? Breville? Should Breville be a sponsor of this video?
I have no sponsors.
But Breville's
pretty legit.
Breville is legit.
Yeah.
And we're talking about them.
Yeah. Well, now we are.
Yeah.
We're just talking about espresso machines.
That's true, but
regardless of what brand you go with, I do like Breville, and they're so I've got the Barista Pro, so it just everything is digital. I don't have the analog pressure gauge thing.
Oh, we have the analog.
Yeah.
Okay.
The digital one, I think, is easier when it comes to cleaning, because it tells you right there. It'll say like, what is it called? It'll say flush, and then.
Oh yeah, the grinder. It's like all the plaque that builds up.
Yeah.
On the sides.
It's like, yeah, whatever that is.
Descaler.
Thank you. I'm like, what in the world? Yeah. So it's an addiction because you start getting really into the art of making espresso. So not only like the bean itself, like you'll go down a rabbit hole with that. Sounds like you might have already, because you're doing pour overs.
Yeah.
But you'll start looking at like, okay, is this a light roast? Is this a medium roast? Is this a dark roast? Because you can do espresso with anything, and the light roast is really floral when you do the right things. But then you start getting into, okay, well, let me weigh out my beans. So yeah, the thing, the Breville, it auto grinds, and it should yield a certain amount, especially once you get it dialed in. Every now and then you got to check it, but you're going to start weighing out your beans, pouring it in the top, getting the exact amount into the portafilter. You're going to buy and I'm foreshadowing for you. This is going to happen. You're going to buy a clicker tamper. So you're going to set the pressure up exactly, the pounds exactly right. So you're going to get, well, first you get it's called the comb.
Yeah.
So you do the comb and get it all evenly laid out. Put a mesh filter on there to make sure you tamp correctly, or everything lays down correctly. Take that out, tamp it, put the mesh filter back on, close it up. And if you really want to elevate your espresso making, pour it over a stainless steel ball. Yeah.
They sell those, don't they?
Yeah, but so the stainless steel ball has to be frozen. So you put it in the freezer, then you pour it over the stainless steel ball into a cup, take the stainless steel ball out, and it is literally...
I think that you can foreshadow most everything up until the frozen steel ball.
What do you want? You don't like balls?
I love balls. I love steel balls, iron balls, all sorts of balls.
I'm telling you, it will elevate the espresso.
You think so?
Oh yeah,
huh?
Yeah, because it doesn't. So when it does something as far as like the bitter notes, and it makes it so much more smoother. So if you're drinking straight espresso, 10 out of 10 recommend. Yeah,
that's probably a good idea because this morning it was a little too acidic for my. Yeah, and I was doing an Americano with like hot water. So
people that are super coffee nuts are gonna freak out that we're even talking about Breville as like a decent brand, but
I think we did a focus group for the S&E podcast. They said we really want to hear about espresso machines and coffee. So
I'll add a poll at the bottom of this on YouTube. Say like, what's your favorite brand?
Oh yeah,
get some feedback.
Yeah, get some feedback. Oh, so to finish your introduction, we did meet at Storytime.
Yes,
but I am a physician assistant.
I didn't know that when I met you.
Yeah, we did not.
I didn't know your father works with my wife.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a funny coincidence.
Yeah, it's like the small world moments where you're like, oh.
And Castle Rock is kind of small world a bit.
Yeah, it's growing a lot though.
But we didn't know that they worked together until
Kaylee said something. Yeah. So I came home and I said, hey, I met this couple at Storytime. You missed out. And she's like, oh, who are they? I was like, I don't know, some guy named Will and Meg.
And then, but she knew from my first name?
No. So it wasn't until she's like, oh, Will who? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I did some like research and I was like, oh, it's Will Furr. Oh, because you texted me. Remember your
background check?
Yeah.
His father's Wayne Furr. Oh, I work with him.
Well, no, I because when you texted me your first and last name eventually.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, it's Furr. She's like, wait, like related to Dr. Furr? And I was like, I don't know. Like we didn't talk about work when we were there. So
we talked about your work, but
yeah, my company that I run.
Yeah. And you being a sheriff.
5-0.
A deputy. Yeah. A 5-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we both agree on a lot of things.
We do.
As far as government overreach.
We do.
But we're probably already on the list, so we can talk about it. People will be like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still, for the audience listening, I'm still convinced that Matt here is an FBI agent. And he's trying to entrap me. And there's a hidden camera in my house somewhere. I think this will be more
funny. Did you actually look around? Did you look around? So the first time I came over to your house,
you took a look around, but you're a very curious and comfortable person. So I think that you went off on your own a little bit in my house, and I was like, "What's he doing? why is he going off by himself? I know he's a police officer. I know I'm a conspiracy theorist. He's trying to entrap me."
Yeah, you're not on the list yet. Did you hear that chickens are the gateway to conspiracy theorists?
I heard pigeons or birds. Birds aren't real.
Chickens. No, I'm not talking about the conspiracy that birds aren't real. That's like I think that's a joke. I think that's a joke because like legitimately we have
birds.
We have birds and we have footage from like the 1800s of birds.
Those might be aliens now though, because aliens have been spying on us for quite some time.
Yeah.
Did you?
Go ahead. But did you hear about the chickens?
No, tell me about the chickens.
So legitimately, they say chickens are a gateway to determine if somebody's a conspiracy theorist and if they're anti-establishment, anti-government. Because if you want your own chickens, fundamentally, you don't believe in the big food production industry.
Well,
and you have your wariness about it.
So you can Can you own chickens without being a conspiracy theorist, or can you be a conspiracy theorist without owning chickens?
No, they're saying it's a causation. So if once you own chickens, it's like you're on this roller coaster.
Really?
Yeah, because then you start producing your own eggs. You
Yeah.
start realizing like, oh wait, why am I going to pay so much money for these eggs when
Right.
it's nutrition is bad? You start looking into nutrition. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
why are they adding all this folic acid to our food?
Mm-hmm.
This vegetable oil, all these
Sounds like you've done a lot
GMOs.
of research here, Matthew. I'm surprised I
I
don't
am
see chickens in your
100.
backyard.
I have asked for chickens in my HOA,
Uh-huh.
will not have it.
Really?
Will not have it.
Huh.
And it drives me up a wall. I love chickens. I would love nothing more than to have my own chickens.
Do you love eating them or owning
Oh
them?
yeah. Oh yeah, I'd eat chickens. Yeah.
Huh. In Florida, we did own chickens. We had 4 chickens.
See, there you go.
I
And did that
guess
start the
I'm in the
ball
club.
against the you're like, wait, what's going on with everything?
No, but I don't think it starts the ball. I think you buy it knowing you want to kind of live off grid a little bit.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, because that was my reasoning. Is like, well, I guess mine was kids. I was like, we don't live on a farm,
Yeah.
and chickens feels like a pretty easy animal to have to like raise the kids and kind of teach them responsibility.
Chickens are mean.
That's why we got it. They weren't that mean, but they were stupid.
Just wander around.
Well, they would poop on their own eggs and then just sit on their own eggs and then poop on it. And I think they call it brooding when they like just sit there and they think that they're actually going to hatch chickens. So
Right.
they just sit on it and like crap on it. And like, so a
Yeah.
lot of the eggs became fairly unusable.
You just clean them.
I know, but like it gets all crusty and like I'm using my thumbnail to scrape it off and it gets under my thumbnail and it's just really gross.
Yeah, you're not a country guy.
I guess not. I tried.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you already have these thoughts in your head, you're like, chickens are an easy way for me to start being on my own.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just gets into, I'd say it's like you start chasing this like rabbit down this rabbit hole of like, okay, if the government's in bed with big food,
Mm-hmm.
and big food is also in bed with big pharma, you start looking at the correlations of like, wait, are they purposely making us sick from these foods and unhealthy just to perpetuate the pharmaceutical industry and like getting us medicated later in life?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And you know, I'm getting to the real conspiratorial stuff, but you saw the TED Talk with Bill Gates, right?
Yeah.
Where he's talking about vaccines and like using vaccines to reduce population. And I'm just like,
I don't think that's exactly what he said.
You don't think so? Fact check.
Yeah.
Should we fact check that? Because Bill Gates can come after us if we misquote
Yeah, hold
him.
on. We're going to take a quick, I'm going to look at my phone.
Okay.
We'll add the video post edit.
Okay.
But because I'm telling you, like,
I'm pretty sure that's exactly the words that he said. I mean, maybe not a quotation, but like I remember listening to it and being like, well, I don't know if he misspoke.
I do think there's a lot of elites that are anti-human.
Oh yeah.
In the sense of they think that humans are a problem and we are overpopulated right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true.
I don't think it's true. But you know, my Megan had a book. I think maybe I was telling you about it. But a book from the 1980s about the Amazon rainforest. Did I tell you about this?
No.
I'll wait till you're done.
So this is a quote. It says, first, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. I think he's getting at like, oh, hold on, let me finish the quote.
Okay.
But there we see an increase of about 1.3. So he's talking about a chart that he's pointing to I think he's getting at, and this is me with like trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I think he's looking at if we medicate, people are more educated, because there is a correlation between education, health, and having less children. So
So the more
people,
educated you are, the less children you have.
correct.
Uh huh.
And that's more like, that's more worldview when you're looking at different countries.
Uh huh.
So like countries that are still agricultural based and everything else like that have a lot of children. And
Mm-hmm.
it does put a strain on their system when they don't have the agricultural means of mass production like we do in America. I don't think that we're doing it right in America as far as, again, the GMOs, the pesticides, and everything that we spray on our food.
But that's how mass production works.
I think there's a correlation. Well, not a correlation. I think there's a cost reward in place.
Uh huh.
In essence of, if you have a starving population, yes, using pesticides and things like that to increase crop yield, or GMOs to increase crop yield, is important. But when you start realizing that you're hurting more people than you're saving, that's when it needs to switch gears and say, okay, hold on. These GMOs and everything else were great in the 60s, well, realistically, like 40s, 50s, and 60s, right?
Uh huh.
We had a huge population boom
Before the cancer booms.
before the cancer
Uh
booms.
huh.
And then you start looking at all the pesticides that are used, and our yield of crops in this country is like through the roof. We are, and that is one of our like nation's greatest strengths, is the sense that we can go to war and we don't have to worry about starvation stateside.
Well, because of how the system operates now.
Right. But what I'm saying is we're producing more than what we need. So we're our stock.
Is that true though?
Yeah, our grains and everything else like that
But
are,
most of our grains are used for like to further process, like high fructose corn syrup.
sure. And we also do a lot. But if you look at the United States aid efforts in the world, when countries go to war,
Uh-huh.
we send them so much grain because that's what we have.
What types of grain?
That's getting into, you're talking like refined and stuff like that.
No, I'm just asking like what
It's
types of
probably like
grains.
corn, wheat, all the corn is a huge production. I mean, if you drive across the United States, the amount of corn that we have is crazy.
Yeah,
The amount of wheat,
but the amount that goes just to processing high fructose corn syrup is crazy.
yeah, yeah,
Because we use right
consume, and that was back in like what, the 80s, when the food industry really went against fat.
right. But the argument is we have created a problem in order to have production. So like there's a company, I think it's a nonprofit in Orlando. Their whole premise is it's called fleet farming, and I think that's coming to other states and things like that too. But their pitch is like, what's the most commonly grown uh, a product in the United States? And their answer is sod, grass. And so their whole thing is they actually plant gardens in people's front and backyards. And then what they do is they have like a courier or a gardener, and they build it for free. I think I'm not trying to misrepresent it, but what they'll do is that they will build it, plant the crops, and then take some of the crops and sell it for continued profit, but give you also some of the crop as well. So that way there's less reliance on the system and more reliance on the individual person. And it might be like a socialist type of mentality where everyone's growing plants in their
Mm-hmm.
own food in their own yard. But I mean, there's kind of a nice concept, a community concept to it, where it's like you're literally eating the food that grew in your front yard, versus
Yeah.
like relying on the system. And the justification of using all these carcinogenic products is because you need to feed the planet,
Mm-hmm.
when really we don't need to rely on that system to feed the planet. Most people have yards, or at least did. I mean, I look around now and all the mass produced neighborhoods, and no one has a yard, it seems.
Yeah, even with my yard, like if I got rid of the hardscape,
Yeah.
it'd be a decent yard.
Yeah, it would.
Especially with the hill,
Right.
doing a layered, like a step system.
And then you could grow some winter crops. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. We have a raspberry bush and a blueberry bush.
yeah.
Just mostly because like berries because their skins are so thin that no matter how much you wash them, if they're sprayed with pesticides at all, that pesticide is going to be integrated in that fruit. I think what's most frustrating about this whole thing is if you talk about it to people, one, they think you're a nut job. They think you're crazy. They're like, okay, well, what science do you have to prove that? And it's like, okay, I can pull up this one from Stanford, this one from Harvard that shows that even if a fruit or vegetable is washed, that once you pulverize it and analyze the chemical makeup of that fruit, that there's pesticides that are still lingering.
Even in the stuff. As far as the mass produced stuff.
Yeah. As the mass produced stuff.
Yeah.
And it really frustrates me when I'm trying to talk to people about this and they just discount you immediately. They're like, oh, you're ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's easy in today's society because all you do is have to call someone a name in order to invalidate them.
Right.
I mean, you don't like what someone's saying, you call them conspiracists, you call them a racist, you call them a bigot, you call them anything, or a Karen. I can't stand that phrase, a Karen. I understand there are real Karens out there, but it's like, it seems like that's a replacement of taking actual responsibility for you being an asshole.
Yeah.
Pardon my language.
That's fine.
Thank you.
These episodes are always explicit.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Have you seen a TV show called I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, I think?
No.
It's a comedy sketch show. It's on Netflix. Oh,
yeah, I'm sorry.
Have you seen it? Yeah. There's this one sketch where he's getting a tour through a haunted house, and the tour guide is like, and this is the adult hour. It's 10 p.m. We can say whatever the hell we want. And then you know where it's going. Tim Robinson raises his hand. He goes, yes, question. He's like, do ever these fucking ghosts come out and just start fucking and flopping their dick around? And they're like, like it's hilarious.
Dude, he came out of nowhere.
He did.
And he's so good, man. I love that. The one that doesn't get enough attention is Lunch Break. When the lunch break gets canceled.
Oh, and he's eating the hot dog.
He's got the hot dog and he's like sitting there eating the hot dog.
They're like, I think he's eating a hot dog. He goes, no, I'm just the most tired I've ever been in my life. Like, has his head down.
That guy is awesome.
He's so funny.
And then the Raj, King of the Sleighs.
I don't remember that one.
Where he's like, Dad, I've got good news and I've got bad news. Mom's still alive. The bad news, he's sleeping with Raj, the King of the Sleighs. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy.
I don't remember
talking
that.
to his dad on the phone.
One.
And his dad, he's like, is Uncle so-and-so there? Oh, thank God. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, Sergeant. Yes, Sergeant. Affirmative. And he hangs up and everybody in the office is like, what the? Yeah. I've seen that one a lot because it's a lot of people turn it into police memes.
Oh, really?
Where it's like, yeah, when your sergeant calls you and tells you to do something that you don't want to do. And it's like your response. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's hilarious. I think that guy, does he look a little like me? Do I look a little like him?
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
I could see the parallel.
It's frustrating because I see it myself.
Do you think he's attractive?
Yeah. I mean,
feeding into your ego.
I got to. I mean, he looks like me, so I'm a 10.
I'm glad you think that.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you think that.
Well, that's a very counselor response. I'm like, oh, I'm glad you think
interesting. Start taking notes.
I don't actually think I'm a 10. I don't.
That's fine. Hey, you can think you're a 10.
Okay, well, I do.
I think I'm probably a solid, probably 7 or 8.
I'd say you're 10. And I only say that because I want you to agree with my assessment of 10 for myself.
No, you just don't want to feel
higher than superior.
There you go.
I need to stay humbled.
Dude, you did go to medical school.
No.
You're a fake doctor. Are you one of those doctors from like the nurses?
Catch me if you can.
The nurses that got the fake certificates from the Florida University.
Oh,
do you remember that?
That was like 2 years ago. I was living in Florida at the time. Yeah, that was
Are
crazy.
you one of those?
Well, I didn't go to medical school. I do have a real license though. I just went to PA school. I'm a physician assistant.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah,
a medical school.
Yeah, medical-esque. That's what they call PA school.
Yeah.
Like
you still had to do internships and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or residencies.
Not a residency. We did clinical rotations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to another sponsor here, Lincoln Memorial University.
They're not going to sponsor us after what we just said about ghosts and their dicks and stuff.
Well, take it out.
No
Take
way.
it out. But it's in Harrogate, Tennessee.
So okay.
Yeah.
So when did you start your program?
2014.
Undergrad. When did you start undergrad?
Undergrad. Jeez. I don't know. When 2005.
What were you doing at that time?
Well, I went to college and studied business and then stopped going to that college. Then went to film school for 6 months. No, a year.
What do you think about this as a filming?
Oh, this is wonderful. This is like this is like the stock room at the film school.
Oh.
This is like better than.
Oh.
It probably is. Broken iPhone. Another Android recording. 2 lights here. I mean, an official set here. This is a real brick wall.
Don't tap that.
Oh,
you ruined the
it's
facade.
Been exposed.
You ruined the facade. No. Yeah. So you're doing. You finished?
Yeah.
Undergrad.
Well, yeah. I had to get.
Well, I mean, like as far as the business or.
Oh,
film?
No.
Like,
so
what did you...
I did business.
Yeah.
Then came back to film school. Realized I was too much of a dreamer.
You finished business, or were
no?
Like,
I halted.
Oh, you were.
I halted. I halted. Hard stop. And I kind of regret that now. I mean, I like being in medicine, but and then I was going to do physical therapist and shadowed some physical therapy, and I only shadowed for like 40 hours. So this comment is not an actual comment. I would have found it very boring.
Okay.
Doing physical therapy. So I wanted to do something more engaging. So actually the physical therapist was like showing me around the hospital, and she goes, "Hey, you see that guy right there?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "He's not a doctor, but like he's a physician assistant. He helps with like brain surgeries." I'm like, "How does someone who's not a doctor operate on brains?" And then she told me about physician assistant. And since that time my focus was going to PA school.
And this was after film.
Yeah, this was after film. So this is probably 2010.
Okay.
I switched my focus to physician assistant, and I was like married at the time. So I worked full time and kind of went to school kind of slowly. And my parents, who said they were going to pay for school, cut me off after I got married, which actually ended up being the best financial lesson for me.
Sure.
To help put myself through the rest of college, because I was kind of putzing around. I really wasn't. So it made me take it more seriously.
There's an ownership for sure.
There is, yeah.
When you start realizing like, oh, even though it's hard to, especially being young, to realize loans as money. Some of the best advice that was ever given to me was when I was working at a golf course in North Carolina called 12 Oaks. There's an older gentleman that was in finances, and he said, "Listen, a lot of people take out a lot of debt in their life, and they live debt to debt. They're never going to be free. They're never going to have the financial wherewithal to completely check out. They're dreaming about, oh, well, one day my IRA will be worth 2.4 million and I'll pay off all my debt."
Yeah.
They're dreaming about it. He's like, but a good way to, anytime you take out a loan, he's like, you will have to take out loans in your life. It's going to be inevitable. He's like, when you take out a loan, what you should do is get a stack of paper. And that stack of paper, I forgot what he said. It was like, if you had bills for one normal sheet of paper, I think there'd be like 8 bills or something like that. So he's like, each slice of paper is $800, $1,000 to be easy. And he's like, so anytime you take out a loan, take out piece of paper, blank piece of paper, and set it down and look at the stack and visualize how much money you are taking out.
Mm.
And he's like, that's the best way that you are going to make sure that you don't take out loans that are absurd in your life.
I'd hate to know how big my stack is right now. Because I still got PA school. That guy sounds like my Uncle Dave Ramsey.
Dave would not approve you getting an espresso machine.
Well, I paid cash.
Beans and rice, fry some beans.
They are beans. Coffee beans. And guess what? It's appetite suppression as well. So I save grocery bills when I drink a lot of coffee.
You should just start smoking cigarettes too.
That's not a bad idea.
I actually chew nicotine gum. No carcinogenic effects, and it's a safe way to deliver nicotine.
But it's addictive.
No.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Nicotine?
Nicotine to a weak mind is addictive.
Oh, for a strong fortress of a mind.
I can go months without chewing a nicotine gum.
Then don't do it.
I don't. I didn't for like 2 months. I did sober October.
Uh-huh.
Sober October, I didn't do anything. November, I just got busy and just didn't.
Mm. And now?
I just had my first one.
Oh,
I'm feeling zooted.
You needed to relax to talk to this 10.
I don't know if nicotine relaxes me. It gets me like, it's similar to like a really good cup of coffee.
It gets you amped?
It doesn't get me amped, but it gets me like quick.
Huh.
Very quick. Yeah. The first time I started using nicotine was when I was in tech school in the military, and I was 19 years old, so I couldn't drink. So I was like, okay, I'll just smoke Marlboro Reds.
That sounds like a healthy alternative.
Well, I couldn't drink.
Yeah. Well.
We were going to bars. We were up in Wichita, like northern Texas, and we were going to like dances and stuff like that, and everyone's drinking beer and all this. And I'm like, man, I feel like a loser. You can smoke in bars there, though. So I was like, hey, let me try one of those. And the first one, I was like,
smoking. It seems like such a military culture these days. Like, military and maybe hospitality. It seems like those are really the two industries that they kind of really fully exist in.
Have you ever smoked a cigarette?
I've had maybe 2 puffs of cigarettes in my life.
Have you cigars?
Yeah.
I like cigars more than I like cigarettes.
Yeah.
Significantly more. More because it's like a social thing.
Yeah. Do you have cigars?
Here?
Yeah.
Right now?
Well, not to smoke in the house.
I am actually, I talked to Kaylee. I'm going to set up like an air purification system here.
Oh, yeah.
Where it like sucks the air out and blasts it outside.
Wow.
So it's coming, but not right now.
Well, I got to be on the second podcast.
Yeah.
Smoke a
exactly.
cigar.
Come on back. I don't have any cigars right now because my humidifier broke.
Oh.
My dehumidifier. So.
Okay.
But anyway, it's nicotine is not that addictive to what people will say it is. People are like, oh, I need caffeine. To me is significantly more addictive than nicotine.
Yeah, but I don't think people are addicted to the tobacco in cigarettes. I think they're addicted to the nicotine in cigarettes.
I just don't feel like when I quit caffeine and I stopped drinking, like sober October, I lasted what? 2 weeks?
Maybe less than
a week. I literally couldn't function.
That's a fortress of a mind you got there.
I couldn't function, but nicotine, no problem. Kicked it.
Well, to a weak mind though.
To a weak mind.
I mean, is caffeine addictive?
Oh, absolutely. I would argue that caffeine is probably the most addictive substance
in the world.
I mean, I haven't used anything else, but I talk to addicts pretty frequently in my job, and a constant for them, regardless of sobriety, we'll use that term lightly, is caffeine and nicotine.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, I'm sober. I'm like, how many cigarettes do you smoke a day?
Yeah.
Oh, I go through 2 packs. I'm like,
that's a struggle working in family medicine now. Is like, I'll have people who quit drinking alcohol and they smoke cigarettes. And part of me, the perfectionist part of me being like, okay, when are you going to quit the cigarettes?
Yeah.
But they're like, I mean, it almost seems like part of their recovery and how they kind of like deal with maybe the cravings of alcohol is through smoking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anybody that needed to like actually detox from
from.
alcohol? Because I know it's like if you quit and you're really hard into alcohol, you could die. It's like
Oh
benzos and
yeah,
alcohol are the two.
right. You can get seizures.
Yeah.
So in the ER, we've seen. I mean, I did 6.5 years in the ER, and we'd get people drunk
Oh,
all
sorry.
the
So
time.
hold on. Back to your schooling.
Yeah.
So
Oh
you
yeah.
decide to go to PA,
Yeah.
and then so that's 2010.
Well, 20. I think I got accepted in 2013 for a 2014 admission.
Okay.
So then I moved from Colorado out to Tennessee, and from Tennessee, I did clinical rotations down in Inverness, Florida,
Okay.
and then I applied for a residency. So I did an ER residency, like a 10-month ER residency in Orlando, Florida, at Edmond Health, and then I spent uh maybe 5 years there, 4 years there, 5 years until COVID hit. Then we did some great dance videos during COVID.
Did you
And
really?
oh yeah. Well, I did one, and I feel really embarrassed about it now.
Is it on the internet?
Probably somewhere. I don't know. I think it was on TikTok because I had TikTok at the time too. I was
Okay.
really going through kind of like I was going through divorce,
Okay.
and like I got on TikTok before I knew how terrible TikTok was, and I was starting to become TikTok famous. I had 2,000 followers. I was
Oh
doing
my god.
lives. I was kind of a big deal on TikTok. I wasn't really. I mean,
I
those are
mean,
those are
2,000
those are
followers
true
is
those are
like
true numbers,
I think
but
I have like 50 right now, dude.
really? Oh, I guess you got to have
Yeah.
I guess I got to make some videos on your TikTok videos or on
Yeah.
your TikTok
Oh,
feed.
don't worry. I'll snippet little reels out of this.
Oh yeah, we should do like a Tim Robinson sketch, just the
Yeah.
two of us.
Eating a hot dog.
I'm the most tired I've ever been in my life.
So you're doing those TikToks. What ended up happening?
um.
You
Well,
started school at that
yeah.
point?
No, I was
Yeah.
furloughed. So I got
Oh,
I got furloughed during COVID.
so wait, so you graduated.
Oh yeah, graduated, did my residency. Um,
Where was your residency?
Advent Health, Orlando.
What did you do?
ER.
Okay.
So I did an ER residency, and then COVID hit, and they told us they wouldn't furlough anyone, and then they furloughed everyone.
What was the reasoning?
Well, it was really slow. Like
Really?
because we thought everyone would be coming in, but no one came in. Like no one went outside hardly, and so I got in the best shape of my life. Like I was running probably 15, 20 miles a week at that time. I was living with my best friend, John, and he was a runner as well. And we were running all the time with our run group. And I remember one time there was these people out telling us to like run further away from each other. Like they were monitoring how close we were. And this was in Florida. So this was in the 2 weeks of like quarantining essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And only essential personnel can leave their house because they're
How'd that make you feel
which one?
when they said separate?
Um, I mean, we didn't really listen to it. I didn't really think about the amount of government overreach until later. I think that my eyes were open like once there was so much hype in the media and no one was in the hospital.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why is there this much hype if literally no one is coming in? Like, I'd see maybe like 2, 3 patients a day in like a 10-hour shift. And so I knew I was getting furloughed. I mean, there's no chance that they were going to continue to pay for all these people to work
Mm-hmm.
when they're not bringing in any money at all. And so I was furloughed, and like I really enjoyed being unemployed. In fact, it kind of broke I had a lot of my ego was tied up in being a physician assistant, especially in the ER. I thought it was like very like sexy to be working in the ER.
Dude, Scrubs.
Scrubs and Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean,
Those
they
two shows really did.
and ER.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
made those positions
Yeah.
like superstars.
Oh yeah. And so I kind of elevated to that level,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a lot of identity wrapped up in it. And then I was furloughed, and I didn't know what to do with. I actually went through kind of a depression, and I was single, and newly single, and kind of depressed because I didn't have any, like, I didn't have the thing that gave me my meaning anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I went through probably a month-long depression of not knowing what the heck to do with my life until I realized I'm actually enjoying myself. I'm like, "Oh, I actually really like having enough time to actually think, and, like, I'm not in fight or flight right now," which was really nice. And so, like, I wanted to go back. Things started picking up. They told me I was gonna get my job back, but I never got the phone call. So probably like 2, 3 months later, I ended up getting a job in urgent care, and that was uh, that was a very corporate job. All these jobs just ended up being corporate, and I was just like a person to obtain metrics to meet their demands. And so I was pretty frustrated working urgent care. I saw probably 48 to 50 patients myself every single day. And if you work in medicine or are familiar with medicine, it's not the seeing 48 to 50 patients a day that's actually really exhausting. It's the amount of clicking you have to do and like typing. And so let's say I work a 12-hour shift, I didn't really have a lunch, 48 patients, that equals one patient per 15 minutes. That's not including breaks, that's not including lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, didn't get, I mean, there were days where for 12 hours I didn't go to the bathroom at all because of how hard they push these people. Because since COVID, I think, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. Like, I'm not talking about COVID specifically. I'm talking about the healthcare system during COVID. It
As
took,
a whole,
as a
yeah.
whole, the
Yep.
healthcare system and their models,
Mm-hmm.
because what they did, what the ER contracting group did, um, is they reduced the personnel. Well, it was slow, and then it started picking up, but they didn't want to add people on because there were waves of up and down, of
Mm-hmm.
seeing a lot of patients, seeing a lot, no patients. So they got tired of staffing for more patients, and then the next day there would be no patients coming in, and so they just started short staffing. And that way, on the days where there was a lot of people, it just took them longer to see. But they were still making, I mean, it's the ER. They were still making all their profits. They were
How much
stealing.
money do they make on an individual that goes to like the hospital itself? How much
Well,
money do they make on one person coming in on average?
I don't, that's in the ER. There's been a lot of legislation coming out regarding transparency,
Mm-hmm.
because the ER is so vague in how they charge and what they charge for. And I was part of that system, and I don't even know how much the things that I was doing was costing people.
Can you give an example?
Um, an example of,
Just like what procedure, what would be given versus what you saw as a provider versus what they saw at the end.
so I don't know what they saw at the end. I know that they're raked in, and they're still raking in the big bucks because they're publicly traded, essentially. A lot of these physician groups are.
Hmm.
I think the specific group I worked for a private equity, was owned by private equity, but it's still billions of dollars in private equity. So that was kind of, I can only speak to really how much I pay when I take like my kids to the ER. Like, I thought my kid ate Tylenol, and that ended up, and I knew exactly which test to order and everything. But I took him in. The hospital bill cost $1,800, and the physician bill cost like almost 1,000. So $2,600 just to go in there. Um, and granted, I don't expect free service.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm not mad that I was charged that. I understand that, but something's wrong with the system.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not even here to talk necessarily on cost of healthcare versus how healthcare is like, um, I guess, killing physicians and providers, nurse practitioners, physician assistants. Because now, I mean, that's how corporate medicine works now. Is I think something like, I don't exactly know the number, but something like maybe less than 10% of all physicians actually work for an independent practice. Most others work for big corporate.
Being in urgent care,
Urgent care,
hospital.
contracted group, hospital. Um, yeah, they're
So at
essentially
that
owned
point,
by corporate.
and so it's the burnout. Is that a fair word to use?
Oh, that's the use they word. That's the word they use,
Okay.
is burnout.
So once you're burnt out, they just discard you and pull in a new grad.
No, what they do, the little shits that they are, is they, and I get pissed each time I'd have to do some kind of education module where they talk about antidotes to burnout. It's like, I know how to fucking breathe. I know how to meditate. And you're telling me, as someone, as an administrator who is paid just to like push people to get the numbers, they see burnout, it might be affecting their bottom line. So then they start caring about burnout.
Hmm.
But they use burnout, this term burnout, as like a way to manipulate people to just like minimize their own experience of being pushed by corporate healthcare. And so it's their way of just saying, hey, we know we're pushing you hard, but stop being such a little bitch about it. Breathe, meditate.
Yeah. And then in lieu of that, the line level, what solutions would you like to see?
Well, I mean, I think that my entire career has been spent in corporate medicine.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is
So,
like if in lieu of those training modules that they sent you, in an ideal world, you make the calls, what would you have done to a physician to ensure they didn't experience burnout? They felt that they were valued. They didn't feel like they were a number.
you cannot feel appreciated when you are in a large corporate conglomerate. The problem is not the administrators. There's no singular person that is to blame. It's the entire system that has gone towards, and understandably, um, maximizing profit. But the problem is in corporate medicine, they're in bed with government, so therefore there's regulation. Is there an issue?
No, you're good. Keep
Okay,
talking.
there are regulations that um, benefit um, they benefit the corporations. Is that camera dead?
All right. Sorry about that, folks. We had a quick technical difficulty.
Mm.
So you're saying that you can't feel appreciated because of the way this it's structured.
Yeah, and again, it's not a person's fault. Um, if I was an administrator, I would probably be doing the same thing, and they're profiting off of the system. So why would the system go back to the way it was actually created to?
So are you saying capitalism is not advantageous in the healthcare industry?
No, no, I'm not saying that at all.
Damn. I was hoping to get you as a commie.
No, I'm not saying. Yeah, right.
We got him.
He's here. Come again. All right. No, what I'm saying is we don't live in a capitalistic society. We This is not free market. This is not a free market enterprise. This is intentionally lobbying government to make sure that big corporate and big hospital and big pharma and big whatever you want to call it becomes more profitable on the backs of the hardworking people who are actually making the money. And so we don't actually live in a social, a capitalistic society.
Yeah.
We live in a like a corporatism. And so I think that like we continue to drift that direction, especially after COVID. I mean, you saw mom and pop shops have to close, and Target could stay open for some reason.
Yeah.
So, and they raked in record profits. Amazon raked in record profits. All these small shops had to close. So there was a vested interest for big corporate to continue pushing the narrative that like we should stay in quarantine because they were making buckets of money.
Yeah. So as a healthcare provider now, so you got furloughed.
Mm-hmm.
What ended up happening after that? You worked at urgent
I
care.
worked at urgent care. Did that
Back out here or still in Florida?
in Florida.
Okay.
And then the ER called me again. They said, "Hey, we want you back." And at that time, I just wanted out of urgent care. I was tired of seeing 50 patients by myself. That was exhausting. So I went back to the ER.
Can I ask you a quick question about urgent care?
Sure.
So I was sick over Thanksgiving, and I'm kind of getting over it, so that's why I kind of probably sound stuffy.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing
Are you
that
asking me a medical question or
no,
okay?
no, just the system as a whole. I was I'm sure you deal with a lot of educated individuals nowadays that do their own research on their body and all this other stuff. They know what medications they want to take. They're not drug seeking, where they're like, "Oh, my knee really hurts. Can I have it starts with the D, Delata, Delete. I had it one time and it really helped me out.
I'd be
Not,
like, I don't know what you're
I'd
talking
be like,
about.
Tylenol. Um, But so what I'm getting at is there's a lot of educated individuals that go into, either their
Urgent
annual
care.
checkups,
Sure.
urgent
Okay.
cares, whatever it might be. So I knew that I was sick with a viral infection
Mm-hmm.
based on what I was coughing up being white frothy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I was like, okay, I can treat the symptoms, but I just literally have to wait for this to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also knew when Ezra threw up, I was like, okay, it's a stomach bug.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't poop his pants or anything else like that. It's relatively easy stomach bug to deal with. So my sister goes into the urgent care. The person there gave Zofran.
Mm-hmm.
Shocker.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is a miracle drug. It kind of bothers me that it's a prescribed, not over the counter. But
Yeah.
I know in high doses it can cause heart arrhythmia and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's normally intravenous. That's a discussion. I don't like big pharma. I think they put a lot of big like profit margins just on the fact that they don't want to sell over the counter.
Right.
So she goes in, she gets Zofran, and I told her, I was like, hey, just go in and ask for an IV. You're severely dehydrated. Go get an IV. You'll feel so much better. See if you can get some vitamin shots too while you're there, like intermuscle vitamin shots.
Was this here
This was
or
here
in
in
North
Castle
Carolina?
Rock. This was here in Castle Rock.
Your family came out and I didn't get to meet them? All
Dude,
of
we
them?
were all sick.
Oh.
We wanted to spare anybody.
No, I'm glad you did. I just didn't know your whole
yeah.
family was out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll be back out sometime.
Okay.
But so anyway, I told her, I was like, hey, go in and ask for an IV. She's not comfortable asking for stuff
Mm-hmm.
from what she views as a professional medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So she comes back and she's like, oh yeah, he gave me some Zofran and a Z-Pack. I'm like, don't take that Z-Pack.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, why? I'm like, it's not bacterial. Why are you going to take a Z-Pack?
Was she coughing or anything? Or
She was coughing, but not
Okay.
like significantly. Nothing, no phlegm,
no production?
no production. It was white frothy. It wasn't like green.
She wasn't like short of breath or anything?
No. Well, she slightly because of the nausea, the dehydration, being from sea level coming up to 7,000 feet. Just general stuff with elevation.
Mm-hmm.
She had a few elevation sickness symptoms in there as far as like, I'm feeling dizzy every time I stand up. That's before she got sick.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her, I was like, do not take that Z-Pack because that's going to that's like a nuclear bomb on your entire system,
Mm-hmm.
wiping out good flora, bad flora, and starting fresh. And she's like, well, he said that it would make me feel better. And I was like, yeah, it might make you feel better like today, tomorrow, but like over the next 2 weeks, your body is going to have to build back all the bacteria that's
Mm-hmm.
good for you. So like my question to you is I feel and going back to probably the 40 people you saw a day.
50.
Okay.
Okay.
How in depth could you get with each individual, or was there
Oh,
just
not
kind
in
of,
depth.
so there's just like a blanket protocol of like, oh, this is what they're having, this is what I think.
Well, here's the thing, and this is not a condoning of
Mm-hmm.
at all. But when you have 15 minutes to see a patient, to document an entire encounter on a patient, to see the next patient, to have enough time for a bathroom break, to have enough time to drink your water, eat your food, it becomes increasingly difficult to argue with the patient because ultimately, the system that we live in is a customer based system, where
Mm-hmm.
essentially, like, the hospital is kind of like a medical hotel these days. Most people's first question when they get into the ER is, "Can I get a warm blanket?" It's like they're just like, want a warm blanket. Um, um, so, for the longest time, and I still try to do this, is if someone has sinus pressure, let's say, and they started having sinus pressure yesterday, I'm gonna be like, you you don't need an antibiotic. So what happens when that occurs, when that conversation starts, is I know my body. I know I need an antibiotic. I've had a sinus infection before. This is a sinus infection now. The antibiotics helped me before, and therefore I want the antibiotics now. I'm like, this is maybe allergies or a virus is what you're experiencing. You have no body aches, you have no fever, you don't feel sick, you just have a little sinus congestion going on right now. That ends up being an argument that will take, and fortunately, I reduce my spiel down to like 30 seconds, but a lot of people don't have a spiel that they rely on. So they'll just say, okay, here's an antibiotic because they have to get on with like the next patient. And there are some checks and balances. I think in the hospital they have like MIPS, which I forget what it's called, but it measures performance. So if you prescribe antibiotics inappropriately too many times, it will actually like flag you
Hmm.
to like the government. I think for being an inappropriate prescriber of antibiotics, which is I don't think is the solution either, because we have Medicare that kind of leads reimbursement. Like a lot of insurances will rely on Medicare to as like guidance. So you have Medicare not compensating hardly anything, so you have to see patients quickly, and also they punish you if you actually take time to explain to them why you're not writing an antibiotic. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Because of Medicare and because of insurance, you need to see patients like this. And because of Medicare and because of reimbursement by insurance, you and the damage that may come from being an inappropriate prescriber, you get damaged that way too. So the
Hmm.
the game is rigged. Does that make
As far as
sense?
a provider.
As a provider goes, the game is rigged. Yeah. And it's a game. It is a game.
So that's so messed up, man, because it's like, as a person who goes in to a provider,
Uh-huh.
I don't want that provider thinking about all that bullshit.
Mm-hmm. That's You represent not necessarily a disease process, but a slot to be filled and a slot to make its way past.
Do you feel that way now in your current situation?
No, because I don't work for a corporation. I work in independent practice. So I actually get a lot of job satisfaction out of my current job.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like I'm being watched or micromanaged. I kind of run my own practice. I mean, it's not my practice. I'm not trying to claim it as my own. I work for someone else who runs the practice, but I don't feel like someone is breathing down my neck and just watching everything I
Do you
do.
feel trusted?
Oh yeah, I do.
That's It sucks as a consumer, because that's what we are. We consume healthcare in this country. I know I've had great doctors, and I've had and I'll say doctors as in like providers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should just say providers. I've had really great providers, and I've had really bad providers.
Mm-hmm.
Providers not in urgent care, where I show up, the nurse asks me a couple questions, checks the boxes, oh, are you feeling this way? Okay, check, 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 check.
Mm-hmm.
And then doctor comes in, hey, everything looks good. Labs, if they draw labs, which that wasn't until recently that I started requesting that stuff.
Yeah.
As far as like blood work and stuff, they'd be like, yep, weight looks good, cholesterol looks good, blood pressure looks good, everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
What questions do you have for me? I'm like, I don't know.
Is that the good provider?
That's the bad provider.
Okay, that's the bad provider.
That's the bad provider.
Uh-huh.
The good provider, she gave me her phone number and says, hey, if you ever need anything, here's my number. You can text me.
A cell phone number?
Yep. There's a portal.
So is that what makes a good provider? Because I don't give my cell
No,
phone number
no.
out.
And I don't expect it, but it's, I've been with the same provider for 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
And, in the 2.5 years, like we've met outside of her, similar to like us, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like, oh, we met outside. I have your phone number. And like through going through the clinic process and going in for checkups and everything else like that, blood work,
Yeah.
she's like, if I don't get back to you on the portal, just shoot me a text message. Because like, I guess the portal, there's like a certain system that she has to check into and like log into to see like a message.
Right.
So she's like, just shoot me a text message. I'm super busy. So like, if you shoot me a text message, I'll get to it faster. But she's a good provider in the sense, like, I go in, get my blood drawn. If she sees like elevated, we'll say red blood cells, right? Naturally people in Colorado will tend to have higher red blood cells because of the elevation. If she sees that, she's like, okay, these are some solutions to reduce it, but let's dig a little bit deeper to see what is causing it. What are you eating? What are you doing in your day-to-day life? What supplements are you taking? What's doing X, Y, and Z, right? And that approach, instead of just seeing it and being like, oh, go donate blood. Have a good day. Come back in the next six months. We'll do another blood draw.
Yeah.
Having that, like, the care around
or
the visit,
the explanation, and that, yeah, I guess that would be care, to like make sure that you're educated enough to know what an abnormal lab finding actually means.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate. And it alarms me because a majority of Americans, one, aren't, I don't want to say educated enough, but aren't versed enough in this topic.
Well, is your provider cash pay or insurance based?
Insurance based.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Which is something I want to pick your brain about, because I do think insurances mitigate a lot, but I also think they have driven the price of standard checkups and everything else through the roof.
It's kind of like the government giving money for student loans.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that. So it's like, yeah, tuition's going to go up because they're getting free freaking money.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be a little different though. Sorry.
I see the analogy there.
Yeah. It's maybe not apples to apples.
Yeah. It just, the whole healthcare system frustrates me. I equate it to like, our bodies are vehicles for our souls.
Right.
And we have X amount of mileage that we have available on them. A majority of the people in America don't focus on their body
until it's too late.
Right. Oh, my heart hurts.
Yeah.
I feel faint when I'm walking around.
Yeah.
How often do you see individuals that are, I hate to use this word because it's almost like bad juju now, but obese?
I would say, I don't have an exact number, but maybe like 35%.
As a provider, I would equate it almost to like being a parent, and like sometimes you have to say bad stuff or bad news.
Yeah.
How do you approach something that's so ingrained in somebody's lifestyle and our culture?
Are you talking about
Like
like terminal illness or like you're fat and you need to lose some weight?
you're fat and you need to lose some weight.
So I don't quite blame. I think there is some blame on the person themselves, but there's also a lot of um, cultural pressures um, and big food industry. I mean, they're putting hormones in our foods. They're putting pesticides. They're putting all sorts of chemicals in our foods. We're essentially being poisoned. I mean, with our food, and there's going to be negative health consequences to that. And so, I won't necessarily put the blame somewhere else, but I'll tell them. I'll say, I think Western medicine is appropriate sometimes, but it's not meant to be a cover up of bad decisions.
Hmm.
Um, and so when people come into me and they have high blood pressure, I'll say, I can slap a band-aid on you. I can give you something for your blood pressure, but you're making bad choices. And like, and I don't quite fault you for that. I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done, and I don't think that comes from medicine, unfortunately. Like, I don't have the answers on in PA school they didn't teach us about nutrition. They didn't teach us about exercise physiology. They didn't teach us about really. I mean, they touched on vitamins and things like that. What deficiencies look like, what toxicity looks like. So they touched on those things, but they didn't actually touch necessarily on how to optimize those things. So I'll say I don't think I'm actually the best practicer of medicine. I think a nutritionist, and we have a great nutritionist. I think he's got like a degree in nutrition, and don't quote me on this. He's got like a degree in nutrition, a degree in like some kind of like psychology. So he does CBT, and he also has a degree in like exercise physiology.
Hmm.
And I think those three are like you'd have to be. y- That would make a great physician. Is someone that actually identifies certain foods or certain lifestyles that actually contribute to different uh, um,
Results.
yeah, different results, but also different like health consequences if
Hmm.
the if
Okay.
if they're going awry. And he's more likely to identify those things than I am because I'm not trained on it, and medicine doesn't focus on training on it. So there's a flaw in medicine that natural lifestyle changes are not really taught to medical doctors, doctors of osteopathy, physician assistant, nurse practitioners, unless you go get a certificate in like maybe functional medicine or something like that.
What do you think about the mind body connection?
I think there's probably a lot of merit to it,
Hmm.
but I think it seems very subjective, um, and that would be more of maybe like a functional medicine or like and I don't want to speak for these professions, so
Yeah.
I don't know the exact definitions of, but like naturopaths, things like that. I think they have a better idea of mind body connection than than
Yeah.
than I do.
I'd be interested mostly just from like a pituitary gland idea being of in the mind, right? And how much that affects like our different sections of the brains affecting our own hormones, which inevitably affect blood pressure, cholesterol levels,
Yeah,
everything,
right.
right? Let alone diet. Like I know you said you do intermittent fasting,
Hmm.
which is
I did intermittent fasting today. I just started. So
you're just now starting
I'm just yeah, I
the
just started.
routine.
So
Okay.
I can't claim that I'm an intermittent faster. I want to keep my ego in
How do you
check.
feel?
Well, I actually broke it for some whiskey, which I feel pretty good. I feel warm inside.
It's good whiskey.
It is great whiskey.
Um, but I think what you guys learn in medical in your medical degree, your training, right, is invaluable to the healthcare system. I do.
It is.
I feel because the schooling is how long?
Well,
Post-grad?
my school is 27 months post-grad.
Okay.
So 1 year of didactic training and essentially 15 minutes of 15 months of clinical rotations.
Okay. So a total of 6 years.
Yeah, but then
if you're on the fast track.
our training is if you're on the fast track. Our real training comes when we work with a doctor. So a doctor is mostly responsible to train us once we're on the job. So it's kind of like a.
Can they train you in different areas?
Oh yeah.
So if you wanted to focus in endocrinology,
Yep, I could
you can go focus in endocrinology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why one of the reasons why I loved the idea of becoming a PA is because I don't want to do one thing for the rest of my life.
Right.
So far I've done ER, urgent care, I've done behavioral medicine, and now I'm here at doing family medicine.
So where are you digging into now in family medicine as far as developing yourself as a provider?
Yeah, I think I need to educate myself more on nutrition, because each 2 or 3 years we get different information.
From who?
Well, I mean,
You're talking like the FDA?
I mean, for the longest time, and I can't exactly remember which category was the largest category to eat.
Oh, the food triangle?
Yeah,
Or the pyramid?
the food pyramid.
I think it was grains.
I think it probably was grains, but that's different now.
Well, now they're saying that cereal is healthier than steak.
Yeah. So
Which,
again, you have the marriage of big agriculture and big food with the government. So there's a Portlandia. Do you watch Portlandia?
No.
There's a Portlandia skit, and it's hilarious where they have different lobbyists. And the celery lobbyist was actually the loser because they're like it was the character was Steve Buscemi. And he was the celery lobbyist, and he could not. What's that?
Keep talking.
Oh, so he could not sell any celery. So he was trying to figure out how to sell celery. So it's kind of funny because it feels like it's actually pretty true, that like some lobbies are more powerful than others, and it just depends on how much research or how you can manipulate the regulators or the researchers in government to make these recommendations.
Do you think there's a connection in big pharma with all of that?
I think there's probably, I could chalk everything up to like a conspiracy where they're talking to each other. I don't necessarily think they're talking to each other. I think they just mutually benefit each other. And there's kind of like this. I don't think big pharma cares about big agriculture, and what they do, but they want to profit from it, and so they do. So I don't think there's necessarily a conspiring between the two, versus they're both out for a profit, and that their goal is the same, to maximize their profit. And fortunately, they both have to kind of screw over the public to make that end goal.
The end goal being profit.
The end goal being profit.
Doesn't that piss you off though?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But
it frustrates me because, like, from being in the military, I always imagined a nation's greatest power is the amount of bodies it has, healthy bodies. I feel like we are shooting ourselves in the foot as a nation. Like, Joe Rogan just said this on one of his podcasts. He's like, do you ever look at a country that we're not supposed to like, and then look at something they're doing, and you're like, that's actually a really smart idea. So Russia just banned all GMOs. It's like, it is a federal crime to grow a crop with the GMO in it. It's a federal crime to put X pesticide on it.
Yeah.
And it's like Russia's supposed to be our adversary, and meanwhile, I'm sitting here and going, "It's pretty fucking smart."
Yeah. So your question was, doesn't it piss you off? You think that the strength comes from the numbers in a country, the bodies.
Yeah, the body inevitably, if it's a full scale war, it's going to be bodies. That's what's going to win the war.
Right, but I don't think it matters because globalism is the end goal.
The
And
New World Order.
it's just no borders. So
Yeah.
our bodies actually don't matter to our defense because there will be no borders. So my body actually doesn't matter.
But who rules?
Well, I think the elite rule.
I mean, like corporations take over is what you're saying?
Well, I think that the New World Order is being ushered in through corporatism, but I'm not sure if corporatism, like you could look at Elon Musk, the most rich man in the world. He's an outcast as far as the elites. Yep. So I don't think it's necessarily corporatism. I think it's compliant corporatism that ushers in the New World Order or the globalism, one world government. But I think you can look at any of these meetings that go on between, excuse me, the CEOs and the world leaders and the World Economic Forum. I mean, I can see it before my eyes. We will own nothing and we will be happy. We have the Chinese buying up our farmland. We have corporations buying up our houses and renting them out. Everything is subscription based. I remember when you used to buy Photoshop or Microsoft Word. You don't buy Photoshop or Microsoft Word anymore. You lease it.
Yeah.
You pay them monthly to use it. So you don't actually own anything.
This podcast isn't subscription based.
Well, Spotify is.
Not the free version.
But that comes with advertisements. Which we like.
Which I don't get paid for.
Which we like Breville and Lincoln Memorial University.
I'm not popular enough to have a sponsorship. So I think even if this recording goes on,
I know
on Spotify.
Well, here's the thing.
There's no commercials.
I know this guy who runs a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And he does like outdoor stuff. He says anywhere between 50 and 1,000 views a video or 2,000 views a video. I can't remember the exact number, but a company just sent him like a pair of gloves and like a vest.
Products would be legit.
But that's the thing. I don't think you need to make it that big to be.
No, sponsored. I truly enjoy the insight that people come, like everyone that's been on my podcast so far. There's a few that are coming up that I know of through friends, and that's me kind of diversifying the. This is in my house, right? So if I have somebody over here, I'm not going to have somebody that's a lunatic, right? So I appreciate the diverse friends that I have, but anybody that's on this podcast, the main thing I want the listeners to take away is, what is your perspective in your profession? What's frustrating you, and where do you think it's going? Is like somebody asked me, they're like, well, what's the purpose of your podcast? That's how I explained it. And then also to have like, it's a laid back conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can't have this conversation with people that come to your clinic.
Well,
you can.
I usually do actually, because I work in an independent practice.
Right.
But
no,
yes,
you can.
I hear what you're saying.
But how often do you have an hour to talk to 90 minutes to explain big picture?
Right.
As like, hey, this is what I experienced going through this.
Right.
Right. Which is super shitty. It's super shitty that a large hospital that makes billions of dollars from insurance alone, let alone people who probably go into debt and file bankruptcy because of medical debt, which is an asinine concept in the leading nation of the world, that, if it's an emergency, I'm not talking like, oh, my knee hurts, so let me go to the ER. I don't think the ER is a replacement for a provider.
Right.
Go to urgent care, if anything. A leading nation should not have its citizens go completely belly up for a hospital visit. So what's my personal view?
It's fine to have a personal view, but do you have a vision for what It should be. Is it socialism? Is it universal health care? Is it
Yeah, it's a
going?
universal healthcare system.
You think so?
Yeah, so when I was in the military, nothing was better than being able. And granted, you are
Why don't you
employed.
go to the VA?
Why don't I go to the VA?
Right?
What are you talking about for like treatments?
Yeah.
I would. If it's a large treatment, I would go to the VA.
Why? Why? If you're not going to, why are you not going to the VA even for small treatments?
One, there's not a clinic close to us. There is one being built in Castle Rock, so I'll probably go to that.
For
Just
everything, primary care for
oh
everything.
yeah, oh yeah, it's going to be a nice facility,
Uh-huh.
like super
So you
nice.
think the VA system works?
I think the VA system does the best it can. I think, I think the problem is going back to you seeing the 40 people a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? 50. Sorry, 50. I keep down at 10,
Well, okay. So universal
but
health care meaning what? Because universal health care, to me,
yeah,
means I actually work for you.
you do regardless.
No, I work in the best interest medically for the patient.
Yeah,
So if I will not be, you're demanding my service to you for free.
I would say in emergency situations.
So you think, okay, from uh, from a uh, okay. So I'm sorry. Keep going. I want to
Yeah,
keep hearing the rest of your.
yeah, you keep digging a hole deeper. So no,
Well, I'm not digging a
I
hole. I'm
think
just
no for
curious
me.
what.
I do. I don't like how Canada does things
Uh huh.
when it comes to general like providing of healthcare.
Uh huh.
I don't. I don't think it's. I don't think it's individual based. Like it's you're just the person coming in is just another almost a burden, and it's like how quickly can we get this person out of here? Oh, you have oh you need a knee replacement and you're in excruciating pain. Okay, we can get you in the next 8 months.
Uh huh.
We'll call you then. Like
So,
that's shitty.
but is that not the nature of universal healthcare? And
What is the incentive now? What would be the difference now if let me ask you this.
mm-hmm.
If you went to school and you had no debt, zero,
Yeah.
what would be a salary to you that you would feel comfortable? If you knew you were providing services to Americans and
So
helping society.
debt is a decision,
Right.
and if I decided to be in debt, student loans or otherwise,
Mhm.
I would be in debt. So to me, I can be in debt in my credit card. In fact, I think we've reached an all-time high of what debt is as far as credit card. So debt will be around regardless.
I'm not what I was getting at is like I think we overpay for medical stuff nowadays.
You're correct.
I think it's ridiculous, and I think that is if not anything, like my first statement is no one should go belly up for medical services in America.
So how does getting the government involved and
Oh, I don't think that's a good idea.
but what is universal health care?
I get that that's the government, and it's not. It's a solution to what we have now. My true vision of healthcare would be that you can go to the hospital, you can pay your bill. So say I go in and I break my leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty big surgery. I need someone to cut it open, line it up, maybe put some plates in there, and I'm going to be in a cast,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before that, you're going to get probably an MRI because they're like, oh, maybe you hit your head. You're going to get an X-ray on the bone, so you're going to have to pay the X-ray technician, all this equipment.
Mm-hmm.
You are looking at a massive bill.
Yes, you are.
I think that a lot of that one, I would argue probably 80% of that bill goes to the hospital, meaning into their pockets.
I don't know the exact numbers, so I can't speak to that.
Right.
But
Ballpark.
yeah,
I would argue it's well over 50%.
okay. So what did people used to do when they broke their leg?
What before medicine?
No, before people were going bankrupt for medical reasons, medical bills.
Well, poor people were not going into the hospital.
Okay, maybe. That's a possibility.
They were doing home remedies of straighten it up as much as possible, get 2 pieces of wood, put it together, wrap it up, and don't move on it.
So, can I tell you my take?
Sure.
We have EMTALA now. Whoever walks through the emergency doors, you need to see. You cannot turn people away medically. So now we have people coming in who have zero business being in the ER. And what do? You take their vitals, you check them in, you let them see a nurse, you let them go back to a room, take up a hospital bed. A doctor goes in there. They have to document. They have to pay the um, the medical charting system. They have to pay for the room. They have to pay for the X-ray tech. They have to pay for everything. So that person leaves. We had to see them. They had zero insurance. They had zero business being in the ER, and they can't pay their bill. What happens then? You just end up writing that off.
Yeah, it goes to the taxpayers.
Right. So we have a government that introduces a legislation that ends up screwing over medicine. Then we have another Medicare that goes in and they screw over medicine. So adding universal health care isn't going to do a damn thing because it's the government running the universal health care. They're just going to screw things up more. They did the same thing. And going back to college, you had people that paid for their own college. And then you have people screaming, people who aren't rich can't go to college. And so what does the federal government do? Hey, we're going to grant you this opportunity. We're going to grant loans. I don't think it was in malice, but what they did is told the colleges, "Hey, we will give you a blank check." So then what did they do? What did the colleges do? They created entire professions and entire degrees that have zero industry dollars or jobs waiting for these people. So they'll take $100,000, $50,000 to educate them on something that they know they will not be making any money in that profession. They're going to end up working in a restaurant or doing something other than what they studied. So government only ruins the industry in which it gets involved in.
So what do you see as an alternative?
Going back, and we can't, like, we feel like it's too late to go back. We think we need to double down and like push forward. But the right in this country, the right, meaning political right, and they may have the same objectives. I'm not saying the right is good and the left is bad. I think they're all out and they all maximize their own profits based on the system that they exploit essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, the right is negotiable. They have conversations. They have debate, whether that's productive or not. The left does not. They are unmovable. And so what happens is you have the right that is acting maybe out of more good faith that ends up inching to the left because you have one that's compromising and the other that is completely uncompromising. So then our entire economy, our entire social structure it starts leaning left, and it's been doing that for like the past 100 years, leaning left. And so the solution isn't to go left farther. The solution is to go back to the solutions that actually worked before the government got involved. And that's going to be really uncomfortable and really painful because a lot of people rely on uh, our social welfare system, our school tuition, or our student loan system.
I think there's just like TRICARE, right?
Which is military insurance.
Which is military insurance, right? But it's still the government ran.
Sure.
Just like TRICARE.
Is it government ran?
Yes.
I know it's a government program, but do they contract it out to private?
Nope, it's not through United. It's literally through TRICARE.
Okay.
You have TRICARE East, you have TRICARE West, depending on where you are in the United States.
Okay.
It literally, I'm pretty sure TRICARE employees are federal employees. what I'm getting at is if you have a medical insurance company like TRICARE
Mm-hmm.
as an option, so everyone has their own insurance. I guess it's similar to Medicare, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. To mitigate, because what I would not want to happen is, say somebody who's working 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet, because that is the world that they live in.
Why are they working 3 part-time jobs to meet ends meet, though?
What do you mean?
Many people are having to work more part-time jobs because the amount of inflation and the
Oh,
increased
sure.
cost of living,
Yes.
which is again a government created problem.
Yeah, the whole Fed is fucked.
Right, but we're this what I'm getting at is the government creates the chaos and then they offer a solution to the chaos. And then ultimately we end up giving them more power by the cure of the chaos that they created in the first place. That's their whole MO. That's how
No,
that's
and what I'm saying is, so negate that,
okay,
right?
sure.
Just dealing with the situation that somebody might be in. They're
Okay.
working Uber, they're working Grubhub, they're working Lyft, they're working all these contracted jobs just to get money to pay rent,
Mhm.
right? They don't have insurance. What I would hate to see is if they needed to go see a doctor for something, that they become belly up because of that doctor's visit.
Yeah. You and I completely agree. But again, we're not really addressing the origin of the issue. You just named 3 corporations
Yep.
that have hundreds or I'm sorry, thousands of employees,
Yeah.
if not tens of thousands of employees, instead of naming jobs of people who create a business themselves, because a business created is almost a dream that cannot exist anymore because the amount of corporate power and corporate competition and the regulation that comes out through this corporatism. So corporate wants regulations so that way people have to work for them. The entire system is broken, and it's been made by the government being in bed with corporations. So yes, you and I agree, but having a government solution to that problem is not a solution at all. It's going to contribute to the problem. Then in 10
No,
years,
I would argue probably empowering corporations, or at least corporations should be providing healthcare for their employees.
yeah, but do you want to regulate that then?
No, because then it's going to become murky. You know, I'm a libertarian.
Well, but
I'm just trying to think of a solution outside of a full revolution in this country.
there,
And like
but there needs to
legitimately,
be a revolution. I'm not talking about a violent revolution, but there needs to be
no.
a change in attitude towards how we see the
Yeah.
government, because all this has happened discreetly or not discreetly, because it's been very open, but very silently.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, when I'm talking to a libertarian, and I don't know if you're being devil's advocate, and I hope you know that this doesn't affect our relationship at all.
No, I
My
know.
my okay, my escalation is just my escalation. Um, um, even when talking to libertarians or conservatives, they don't even see this. I had a patient today that was talking about, oh, I'm really conservative. I'm really starting to like Nikki Haley. And I'm like, Nikki Haley is essentially a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's very pro war. She wants to spend trillions of dollars in a war that we have no involvement being in. I mean, so it's all been very slick and smooth, and like there's been it's like getting fat. Like no one sees themselves getting fat. They just look in the mirror one day and you're like, "Wow, I'm fat."
And do you think we're at that epiphany moment? of looking in the mirror?
I think I've reached that epiphany moment.
Do you think the populace of America has?
I think more has than is being conveyed. I think that the mainstream media or the government bot media
Mm-hmm.
is trying their best to push the narrative that things are as they are and as they always have been, and I don't think that's true.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think there's an easy solution with a two-party system that we have today. Because regardless of who you put in, there's going to be special interests. I do agree with you that right now there's a political side that I feel like has our interest more in mind with getting back to a party ideology. For 20 years now, we have been in a party mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Money, money, money. Let's keep printing money.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rates are low. Everything is great. We're just going to keep this party going.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we are looking in the mirror right now and saying this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the right politically right now is trying to put a genie back in the bottle.
I think there's a very small populist right that may
Yes.
be trying to put the genie back in the bottle, but I think generally
Yeah.
speaking, since the Republicans got the House back,
Mm-hmm.
they've been doing absolutely nothing but pandering to the Democrats. So, you know, I'm still waiting to see if this Mike Johnson guy is going to be. It seems like he's a little bit more compromising to me. And I'm not like a Trump fan. I'm not like a Vivek Ramaswamy. I do like what I think though is we need someone uncompromising. And I think people feel uncomfortable because they actually expect more morally out of the right than they do the left, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people are harder on the right because the right sets the expectations of moral integrity higher than the left does. So they kind of screw themselves over with the position of we're morally superior and we're actually willing to have more conversations and move towards, out of good faith, more towards the left. And they end up shooting themselves in the foot because they end up moving more left. So I like Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy because they seem uncompromising. They seem to
Ramaswamy,
more Vivek.
He stresses me out because his affiliation with Big Pharma previously.
Sure, but he also stepped down from his position in Big Pharma because of wokeism.
Yeah, but he's still making fucking boatloads when he was there.
Sure. Yeah.
And that and
Again,
that the over medication of the American population
right.
pisses me off to no end.
Yeah.
And it literally just boils down to do full circle back to the food stores. People need to start having their own chickens,
Uh-huh.
growing their own eggs, growing their own vegetables.
But that puts you on the watch list.
I don't care. I don't care.
Well, here's the thing. I may not trust, or I may be very skeptical of Vivek because of his big pharma associations
Mm-hmm.
or history. I like what he stands for. I like what he says. He seems very uncompromising. Same thing with Trump, very uncompromising. I think that right now, I just want someone who's going to bring us back to uh, a pre hyper regulated system where corporate had all the power. And so we cannot compromise our way back to that place.
Do you want corporate to have all the power?
No, no. What I mean is, if we continue with the right having this moral superiority, we're willing to have conversation, we're willing to compromise, we're willing to do all these things, you're going to ultimately end up with complete corporate power.
I see what you're saying. Okay, I misheard you.
Yeah. Or maybe I misspoke. I don't know.
No, it's clarification's always good.
And that's just not a place that That's not our what our country was founded on. That's not the principles that our country was founded on.
No.
And so, everyone feels uncomfortable when people say we need to go back because of the racism and the segregation and everything. And it's just a trigger word and a way to accuse someone from not saying we need to go backwards, but politically we do need to go
Yeah, we
backwards.
can keep all the social stuff
Right.
there,
Yes.
but politically
Right.
agree.
And it's a nuanced conversation, but people want to make it not nuanced. They want to make it black and white and tell you and call you names so that way you actually cannot bring that topic back up.
The name calling pisses me off, especially today, because especially with the world conflict that's going on, there's been a lot of the term Nazi thrown
Oh yeah.
around, and it freaks me out because if it's like the boy who cried wolf.
Mm,
You can call people Nazis all day long,
right.
like, oh, that's a Nazi, you're a Nazi, that's a Nazi, until some dude actually shows up wearing a swastika
Mhm.
and wants to murder people.
Right.
And then you're like, oh my God, that's a Nazi.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, shut up. Okay. You call everyone Nazi. And they're like, no, seriously, that's a Nazi.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't, people admit, like, they play down how powerful labels are.
Yeah, but labels don't mean anything anymore. Like I was
Yeah.
called a racist because of who I voted for. And in 2016, that really affected me. I'm like, what?
Like, as your identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They called me a racist. I'm like, how what do you mean I'm a racist? Like I was so hurt. I was like in my head for like 5 days. Yeah. And now, I mean, no one calls me racist now. That I was only called racist once
Right.
by one person. But like I don't know if that would I don't know if it would hit me the same way as it did back in 2016.
I think the person delivering the message means a lot to me.
Sure.
So, like, I value your opinion. Like, if you labeled me as something,
Right.
I would reflect more on that opposed to somebody in passing,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But I think that has to do with, like, just social structure of
Sure,
our
but I
society
don't
in
think
general.
people who know you are calling you racist, or
No,
people who know me aren't calling me racist.
right.
But like when some random person calls me racist, um, back then it really profoundly
Well,
hurt me.
I think that also has to go back to the media too, of how much, like, oh, this person's a racist, this person's a Nazi, this person's anti-Semitic, this person's that. We've become so numb to all these labels. It's going back to the boy who cried wolf. It freaks me out because, like, if somebody is a racist, they should be labeled a racist
Right.
because it is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that person should be treated poorly or anything else like that. I actually think the opposite. If somebody is a racist, they should be treated with empathy. They should be treated with trying to understand where they're coming from, because that is how we build relationships with people that have opposing views from us and understand where they're coming from, bigoted or not. And then hopefully in conversation, they're receptive enough to hear what you're saying. If they're not, that's fine.
Well, there's a guy who actually I forget his name, but he was I think a jazz player, and he was a black guy, and he actually had a meeting with one of the Ku Klux Klan chapters. And he showed up secretly, I think. I can't remember the exact story, but he has converted people out of the Ku Klux Klan by that very thing. By like, oh, why do you not like black people? Why this? Why that? And like through conversation and him just being curious, and he's genuinely curious. And I admire the way his mind thinks. I wish I could remember his name, but um, that's how he has changed people's minds about black people is through these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone is really capable of that. I mean, I don't expect that out of everyone.
I think the hardest thing for me, so I went to a HBCU, Historical Black College University.
Hmm.
The hardest thing for me was finding those people who are willing to have difficult conversations, especially about, like, we're studying criminal justice, right?
Hmm.
So, like, there is a lot of history in this country with criminal justice and segregation and everything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
The enforcement arm of this country's racial ideologies back in the early days of the foundation, all the way up to the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
70s, 80s, 90s in some southern states and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's real. So it was interesting always trying to find those individuals that were willing to have the really hard conversations and weren't going to have a snap judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Did you find yourself not having that conversation, like feeling things out first before having that
oh
conversation?
no, I dove head first.
You did.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. An easy way to segue into that type of stuff for any college listeners out there right now, in a study that is controversial, and I would even argue like medicine at this point can be controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you could always, if you feel like you need to explore a subject that you're not comfortable being the scapegoat for because you will get targeted, just say, "Excuse me, to play devil's advocate, I would like to discuss X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
Can we have a conversation about this?"
But do you own your own opinions when you do that,
Oh
or you
yeah.
just act like you're a
No,
devil's
I
advocate?
would own my own opinions.
Uh-huh.
Like there's no correlation between race and criminality, but there's a correlation. And this got really heated in one of my statistic classes,
Yeah.
right? So there's no correlation between race and criminality, meaning like based on your race doesn't mean that you're at a predisposition of crime. Like that doesn't exist.
Uh-huh.
But there is a correlation between socioeconomics and criminality.
Mm-hmm.
And disproportionately, minorities live in lower socioeconomic status in our country, given the history of everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything that's happened that went on during the 80s and 90s and continuing through today.
Yeah.
Right. So there's not a correlation between race and criminality, but socioeconomics and criminality. Well, I had that conversation and people are like, well, you're just connecting the dots to say that, minorities are committing more crimes. And I said, no, I'm literally pointing at the fact that it is socioeconomic driven,
Mm-hmm.
that if you are hurting for cash, you are at more likelihood to look at other means to make cash.
Is there a statistic that says black people or white people are hurting more for cash? And then is there a systemic reason why those people are hurting more for cash? Or is that not
Well,
studied?
systemic is difficult because you're looking over time. So you're looking at uh, s- like social impacts of different things that happened. So like the Reagan administration really pushed the welfare,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a correlation, not a causation, but a correlation between like the single motherhood in minority, so lower socioeconomic. So like that's to include whites in trailer parks and everything else like that. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone in the lower socioeconomic bracket, the likelihood of men staying in a family significantly reduced once welfare was introduced.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some.
But can we blame or can we look at like hiring practices as a way of identifying racism? Um,
Well, there was the you're talking about like affirmative action and stuff.
Sure, yeah, or like DEI type of stuff, like equity, diversion, or
Yeah.
diversity and inclusion. Sorry.
Yeah, I would argue that that's looking at you're trying to skew the numbers and you're not looking at the root cause.
Okay.
In my personal opinion,
Yeah.
right? So if like the
Just playing
root,
devil's advocate.
right? No, and this is more getting into like, oh, okay, now you're interviewing me,
Uh huh.
but it what I was getting at is it's interesting to have those conversations with people,
Yeah.
right? And it's not always easy, it's not always comfortable,
Yeah.
but it's something if we don't talk about, we're not going to come up with a solution for.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost say that we are past the point of conversation because of how the media has portrayed black
Yeah.
and white. Like, there's no such thing as nuance.
Hmm.
Nuance does not get clicks.
Yeah.
So you have to make things black and white in order to kind of create inflammatory characters,
Yep.
and that's when people kind of click on the news story.
Alex Jones
Yeah, Alex Jones,
is a good
Elon
example
Musk.
of that. Elon Musk is a good example. And
Uh-huh.
then and I had a conversation with a previous guest and he was like, you need to be more controversial.
Mm.
You can't just be middle of the road and understanding of every side. If you want clicks, you got to be controversial.
Right.
And like, you know me pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really receptive to other people's views.
Mm-hmm.
I don't shut them out.
Right. Was he saying you need to be
Yeah.
controversial? Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think that possibly you need to have controversial characters
Sure.
to
You're one of
interview.
them.
Am I?
Yeah. Anti-government.
Yeah. Well, again, I think there's a lot more anti-government people than
Oh yeah. I will
than
100%
government wants
say,
us to know.
I love America.
Yeah.
I cannot tell, like, I have this absolute love for this country. So much so that I was actually just talking to a state representative, and I know this is going to get you stirred up. I was arguing, I said, I've been to countries where there's an established religion for that country.
Mm-hmm.
This country, America, was not founded on a religion.
Yeah.
It was founded on actually the opposite, freedom of religion
Right.
and away from religion.
Yeah. Away from religion?
Freedom of religion and the option to be away.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, that's
A
freedom of
direct,
religion.
like a direct, well, freedom of religion
Means no religion.
it also implies no religion.
Sure.
So I was having this conversation with this state, the staffer of a state representative. The state will stay out of this. And I said, I have traveled the world and gone to countries where there are established religions for that country.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing felt more sickening than if you are a Christian, a Jew, or whatever, Buddhist,
Mm-hmm.
that you would have to pay money to be in the country and practice your religion.
Hmm.
I don't want
Which
anybody.
country does that? Where you have to pay money to practice?
Almost all Middle Eastern countries.
You have to pay
There's a
money
tax
to practice their religion?
to practice your religion.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So I said, at no point would I ever want somebody coming to this country to feel like they cannot be an American based on their beliefs.
Yeah, but you're comparing apples and oranges. You're comparing a place that has an official religion that charges you to be of different religion and not having an established religion, because
we are not a Christian-based country.
We are founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs and Judeo-Christian morals.
Give me a Constitution article that has anything to do with Judeo-Christianity.
Well, it's in the Bill of Rights, really.
We believe these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal,
right,
under God.
Right. I mean, the Constitution is not a moral document, but the Bill of Rights, I would argue, is a moral document.
But the Bill of Rights, outside of that one statement, states nothing about God. And at the time, the founding fathers, the highest being of this entire universe to them was God. To ultimately say that we are all free under God was a direct correlation to the Catholic Church and the English Church. Because the English Church, you were not free.
Well, neither with
you were servants.
Exactly,
you were servants. Period. Well, they in the Bill of Rights, they broke that down, immediately shattered it, and actually, I would argue, shattered religion and gave people the option of no religion in this country, based on the fact that regardless of what you believe, dog, you're a free person.
Right.
That is what that statement embodies.
Sure, and I agree with you. You do have the right to not have a religion. I'm not saying you should not, but I think when you have now I'm going to get controversial, and I don't know if I want to stand by these words, but has the melting pot of cultures, religions, has it worked out better than those that are not a melting pot?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
For diversity, technology, everything else. There's a reason why America is leading with technology and everything else, is because we are a blending
I
melting
don't know if
pot.
they're leading with technology.
Oh, we are. Absolutely. Hands down.
I mean, is that speaking of opinion, or you have like
No, that's facts. Why did Elon Musk leave South America or South Africa and come to America?
apartheid and violence?
That, yes, but why did he start his company here instead of like the UK or something? We have talent, we have people here. We are the driving force of AI, everything. Silicon Valley, I don't like their politics and everything
So,
else
do
like
you
that,
think we
but
should have an established language then? How important is assimilation when discussing the success of a country?
I think they're
Because in the olden days,
yeah.
people came from Mexico, Italy, France, wherever,
Mm-hmm.
and they chose to not teach their kids their language because they wanted them to know English.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I think Colorado specifically says we're encouraging them to not speak English and to continue to speak their native language.
Yeah, I would argue as economic growth and everything else that learning English is advantageous as a whole.
Sure, but again, that's not my question. Is how important is assimilation to the success of a country?
You should want to assimilate.
Okay, so back to my
What I'm
question.
saying, that's it is important. The simulation is important.
Okay,
But
so
it should you should
what's
have this underlying like urge. Nothing should hold you back religious based. Period.
do you think that because my friends are Christian or Jewish or whatever, that I'm not accepted as a friend to those people? I'm not making an
No,
argument.
what I'm saying is like at its root, religion in this country has zero place. Zero.
So
I'm
not
not arguing the morals that religion brings with it.
sure.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is as a country,
And I'm not saying that we should be forcing everyone to be Christian or Jewish or Muslim or whatever. Like,
mhm,
that's not my question. Um, but when discussing like a national religion, I mean, a national religion or a national language is nothing but a sentence in a book.
sure.
Like national language, English; national religion, Christianity;
Mhm.
national religion, uh,
What's your passport written in?
English.
There you go.
What does that mean?
It is written in our passport. That is the national language. If you go to Germany and you have a Germany passport, what's it written in?
Right, but again, my point is having a national X, Y, or Z
Right.
doesn't mean you have to have X, Y, or Z. It just means that's the accepted norm. Statistically, it's the normal. It's the bell curve. It's not the outliers.
Yeah, I would just say that religion doesn't have a norm. Should not,
Uh,
based on the founding of this country.
well, yeah, but statistically speaking, there is, and it may not even be Christianity. I mean, I think we're getting away from Christianity as a country.
Yeah,
But
how would you feel as a Christian if Muslim became the predominant religion of the country? You would
uh,
feel like, oh, I can't. There would be. You cannot deny this. Some internal feeling is like, I don't identify with this country anymore.
I've said this for a very long time. Is I really don't care who's in power. Like Vivek Ramaswamy is Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
I would not care if he's a president as long as he upholds what the American values are. So no, I really wouldn't care if it didn't affect me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we were enforcing Sharia law, sure, that would be really bothersome, and I'd probably want to get out of this country if we were based off of Sharia law, because that doesn't represent our country at all.
Yeah, it goes against the foundation,
Right.
and I would just say our foundation goes against any established religion.
I don't think it goes against any established religion. I think it's agnostic of any established religion.
There is a clear separation of church and state.
Yeah. Where does it say that, though?
Pretty sure it's in the Bill of Rights.
Is it the Bill of Rights?
Might be Bill of Rights, might be Constitution.
I don't know.
I think it's Constitution. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Fact check it.
I will too. Yeah.
But it is in one of the founding documents of this country.
Yeah.
So, but then during the 80s, we got pissed off at the Russians because they had no God during communist, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a clear delineation of like America is with God, communism is not with God.
Mm-hmm.
So we added "In God We Trust" on all our bills. And I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, to the republic for which I stand, one nation
under God.
Added under God, because before that it wasn't there. But we're all indoctrinated.
Yeah, and everyone has to be indoctrinated. There's no such thing as not being indoctrinated as a child.
Sure.
Unless you're raised by wolves.
Well, I think the indoctrination can be bothersome, especially when you're trying to change a system, right?
Sure.
So like if I grew up only reading American history books, I would think, oh, America won World War II. We got to Berlin first. When in actuality, Russians won World War II. They were in Berlin hours before the Allied forces.
Yeah.
And they had lost. And I'm not saying the Russians were all end all be all, but like give credit where credit is due. So that was I remember distinctly when I was 16 years old, the first time I read that, and I was like, what are you talking about? We won World War II.
Yeah.
Because in all of our books, it says Allied forces marched to Berlin, got to Berlin before Russia, and we won.
Huh. And
then to actually get accounts from, Allied troops that say, oh, we got there, Russian soldiers were already well established within Berlin.
Right. Well, I think that, yeah. I mean,
I just remember that being the first like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why am I being fed this load of BS?
Yeah.
Oh, because of the Cold War, we really hated the Russians, so we wanted credit.
I mean, history is written by those who essentially won.
Sure.
So, and I think America is just as guilty of that as anyone else.
Yep.
So,
if you want to watch a really good documentary series, it's like some CIA or spy something on Netflix. Spy Game? No, I don't. Maybe it's Spy Game.
Brad Pitt and
no, it's a docuseries on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
The only thing I'll say about it is like the CIA today will still not admit to fault on a lot of things that they messed up on.
Well, why would they?
Because it's the right thing to do.
The CIA is very moral and upstanding.
Yeah.
Organization.
Well, I think we're at like almost. I think we're at 2 hours.
Oh, geez.
But
okay,
Will,
sir,
it's been a pleasure.
I don't even think we got to everything we wanted to get to tonight.
No, we're gonna have to do another episode.
Yeah,
we'll get you on the books.
Yeah, sounds good.
Speak to my. Can you get him on the books, secretary? Yeah. Perfect. Appreciate you.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Take care. Hey, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Head over to snepodcast.com. You can sign up for our First to Know newsletter. And on that, you can send questions or subjects you'd like to hear about guests that are going to be on. Every 15th of the month, I send out a list or a roster of the guests that are going to be on next month. So you kind of have an idea of what's going to be talked about. So thank you once again. Appreciate you, listeners. Appreciate you, Will.
Appreciate you, sir.
Take care, everybody.